Human Rights Watch has called on the South African government to hold those responsible for xenophobic attacks accountable to the fullest extent of the law. Last year, government launched a 5-year national action plan to combat xenophobia, racism and other forms of violence. But the rights groups say that this has had very little impact on the lives of Asian and African foreigners living in South Africa. To tell us more, I'm now joined via Skype from London by the Director of Human Rights Watch in Southern Africa, Dewa Mavhinga. Thanks so much indeed for joining us and welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
All right, so you've released this report that looks into xenophobic violence in this country in particular. What would you say have been the main findings of this report?
Well, the main findings of the Human Rights Watch report are that there are cycles of xenophobic violence in South Africa targeting foreign nationals, mainly in the informal settlements in Durban, in Cape Town, in Johannesburg, Diepsloot, in Pretoria, and that there has been no accountability. The police have not acted to stop these abuses and have not thoroughly investigated these abuses leading to any successful conviction of those that commit crime. And this impunity has given people a sense that they are above the law and that they can take the law into their own hands, commit abuses with nothing happening to them. And the South African authorities have not been decisive in dealing with the root causes and the massive problem of xenophobia, which comes in waves every now and then.
All right, we'll talk about the actions of the authorities just now, but let's begin by perhaps describing some of the abuses that you've noted. And I believe you've interviewed quite a number of people who've suffered this xenophobic violence.
Well, yes. The abuses include physical attacks on truck drivers, the torching of their vehicles, some drivers being petrol bombed and killed, attacks of foreign nationals within communities, their homes being destroyed, their belongings taken away from them, foreign nationals, small shops, plaza shops being looted repeatedly, some with even bigger places of business, like car parks or garages, those being destroyed, burnt down. These are some of the abuses that we've talked about.
In your report, I'm not sure if I'm reading it correctly, but you almost suggest that at times the authorities may be giving tacit approval by watching and doing nothing.
That is absolutely correct, and it's one of the biggest drivers of repeated xenophobic violence, because the authorities have not done much. They have looked the other way, and in some cases, some political leaders have uttered reckless statements that incite xenophobic violence and that fuel and feed into this monster of xenophobic violence. There are no attempts to bring everyone under the law and to protect vulnerable groups and to ensure that there is no repetition of this violence.
Those that are doing the attacking, what are they saying about it? Are they giving reasons for the abuses?
Yes, one of the reasons is an assumption that they can take the law into their own hands, and also that of scapegoating, that is to blame foreign nationals for the social ills that may be in South Africa, that is to say issues like drugs or criminal offenses or the loss of social services. So basically to say whatever is wrong in South Africa should be blamed convenient on the foreign national, and that frustration and anger should be taken out against the vulnerable groups in the foreign nationals. And this is supported by the lack of action from the police. And some of the police, within the police themselves, they've also displayed xenophobic sentiment, because when these groups go to report to the police, no action is taken, and sometimes they are told, we cannot help you. When are you going back to your country?
All right, and I believe that Foreign nationals often seeking asylum struggle in terms of renewing their documents, and then that puts them into that illegal status.
Absolutely, and in some ways, the Home Affairs Department is also fueling this status, because we have spoken to individuals who have been seeking and renewing their asylum applications every 6 months for 17 years, for 15 years. And that is unacceptable. There is no basis whatsoever why the Home Affairs Department should not resolve these applications timeously. Why should someone spend 15 years of their life still applying for asylum?
What are the authorities saying about why it takes so long and why the repeated applications?
Well, it is simply lack of political will, because there have been repeated court cases and rulings compelling the South African authorities to act timeously and also to, for example, open the refugees reception center in Cape Town. But the government has not done that. And it seems that there is a sense that addressing issues of xenophobia will result in loss of political power and favor from amongst the political leaders. And therefore, there is a reluctance to decisively deal with these issues, because the leaders themselves are also complicit, because they seek to blame foreign nationals when they fail as political leaders.
Let's explore the authorities again, and now the police in particular, because in your report you talk about them actually acting in a discriminatory manner in some of the raids and some of the way that they handle and deal with foreign nationals.
Well, yes, and it's a big problem that instead of receiving the complaints from foreign nationals who are under a vicious attack every now and then, the police have often ignored that and instead have chosen to target the foreign nationals, to arrest them en masse, indiscriminately, randomly, and in some cases demanding bribes where individuals might not have sufficient documents, and once the bribes are paid, then letting people go. So it's also an issue of rampant corruption that is fueling this exploitation of foreign nationals who do not have sufficient documents. And in some cases, some of them who even have sufficient documents but are still victimized. And this has gone on, including under the lockdown of the COVID-19 pandemic.
And then perhaps to start wrapping this up, the National Action Plan, which was instituted, what's become of that? Has that helped?
Well, the National Action Plan to combat xenophobia has not worked as well as it should have, because it ignored aspects of accountability and the training of the police and focused on justice and the protection of communities by the law. The National Action Plan focused more on social cohesion, on saying how do we get communities to live harmoniously together, and integration of foreign nationals within communities. But once the foreign nationals are in those communities, they are not safe. They are under constant attack. And in some cases, for example, in Durban, in the Benwood informal settlement, we spoke to the police who said they could not go into Benwood to protect foreign nationals because it was not safe for the police to go in there. They were afraid to go in that informal settlement. So when you have the police say they are themselves afraid to go and offer security, that tells a lot about the attitude of authorities.